All right, everybody, here is that student sample paper, Increasing Employee Wellbeing and Productivity Through Decreasing Work Hours. If we take a look at the report overview, you will see that this is the layout of information that's required to appear in the document. Transmittal memo, a cover page, table of contents, sections, references, etc. So let's go in and let's take a look at the report itself. So this is not in the right order. I would take this out. I would start with just the transmittal letter or the transmittal memo here. You can even label a transmittal memo. Date to, from, subject, and then the memo content itself. This is fine. I always tell students a transmittal memo is like an email with a report attached. I don't think you have to go into a ton of detail. What you could say here is enclose the report you requested, based upon the proposal that you approved, et cetera, et cetera. And just a couple of sentences. It does not even have to be this long. This report, as it stands, is about 2,500 words, and so you may want to trim it a little bit. The assignment does not require an executive summary. There are ways of setting up executive summaries, but I'm not even going to show them to you because it's not part of the assignment. So you do not need this. The student is not following the assignment guidelines. And so I would omit this. The next thing you need after the transmittal memo, if we take a look at the assignment itself, is a cover page. Do APA, that's fine. And then after that, what you need is a table of contents. So drop the executive summary. This is a cover page instead. And then a table of contents. And I showed in the other video that I have in the announcements where I go over the assignment in general, how to format one of these and make it super easy and clean and automatic. And if you need help with that, you want to meet with me during Zoom, like a Zoom office hour, I can even walk you through building a table of contents. So the reports design, you can see that we have a header 1 with introduction, and then we have header 2s with background, purpose, and an overview of the methodology, background of what the problem is. The purpose would be to fix the problem, and then the methodology would be what type of work did you do to gather the data? That's what a methodology is. And as a reminder in the other video, I also shared the note that when you do a lot of academic research through the library databases, you're going to find methodologies in so much of those research reports that you find that are peer-reviewed academic journal or trade journal content. You've got the findings and discussions here. You can see that they're chunking information in a single space. When information is borrowed, word for word, it's quoted with a quote like this. If the document had a page number, let's look at Virtanen et al. 2014. You're going to want, I need to find Virtanen et al. Yeah, see, there are pages here. And if I go to this document indicator, this should, see where it says DOI not found? This makes me think that this document does not actually exist. The DOIs must exist. The articles must exist. Virtanen, it says Virtanen 2012. But if I go into that text, what did it say in here? It said Virtanen, I think it was Virtanen 2014. So where was that? Yeah, see, the copyright year is off. The DOI doesn't exist. This leads me to believe that this is a problematic source regardless. But let's see if we can find it in library databases. So my A students choose scholarly articles only. And so you could get those peer reviewed, like the best research. Now I'm plugging in that title and see if it exists. Maybe the student just messed up the documentation. Yeah, it's 2012, not 2014, right? So if you see the actual article, it's not that the article was hallucinated or fake. It's that the documentation was problematic. So I'm going to open this up and let's see if we can get it open. Working hours in coronary heart disease, a systematic review and meta-analysis. Meta-analysis just means that the reviewers were analyzing multiple other people's research. And then 176.7, 586 to 596. 176.7. So yeah, so all the data exists. Let me show you a trick. When you're in the library databases, to get a proper citation on the landing page, it provides it, and you can choose MLA 7th. And let me show you the difference. This right here, I'm just going to plug this into my fake Word document for a second. And then let's do a page break. And of course, you're going to have a references section, right? and then you plug in your source just like that. It didn't take me long at all to come up with the format of the information, but what I want to show you is that your URL, your document indicator links must work, and it must take us to a title that is functional. So let's see what happens. There we go. And if it takes us to a 404 error, it could be the student was using AI to help document a real source, but the AI got it wrong. So when students are writing these reports, you have to make sure that every single link goes to an actual document, that the data within the document is correct with the copyright year, or it's just going to be faulty documentation, and it's up to a student at this advanced style of class to double, triple check their work in your documentation spaces. I'm not sure why some of this is gray and some of this is black. In the font, maybe it's a lot of copying and pasting. I don't mind students doing some quoting. And remember, if you quote accurately, you could have a % matching through Turnitin, and that's normal as long as whatever is matching is low, less than 20%. The quote marks are in the right place. The sources are accurately named, like the correct spellings, the correct copyright years, etc. And that when you have an open quote, you have a closed quote. So I'm fine with the sections as I see them in the report itself. I like that there is a conclusion and then the recommendations and then the references. You can also go through and you want to make sure that each of these sources are named throughout. And if you have a 3 author and APA style, you will name those 3 authors. So let's try to find Sato, just as an example. I see it 3 times. There's our authors, Sato, Kurata, and Owen, 2020. And this one looks to be closer as far as the copyright year is concerned. Oh, error, DOI not found. So this is a significant problem of documentation in the student, because the links aren't accurate. The source may absolutely exist, but because those links aren't accurate, student's going to get a very low documentation grade on this, because the person using the report cannot find those sources. Let's see if this source does exist. And again, I'm looking at the quality of student research. I want to see that the data they find is within the library. If you can't find it in the library, that's a time to email me or leave a note on your draft and to say that I could not find this in the library. So what I needed to do instead, oh, that's not the right article. Hang on. Let me go back in. This is that student report. I'm looking for the Sato one. Hang on. All right, so I just had to go in and I had to grab the title one more time. I think I was just copying the prior title. So here's that article, and when you click on it, it does exist. 246, if it's volume 246, let's check it on the document, volume 246. Yeah, it's just this document indicator is all wrong. And I'm not sure, again, this is the problem of students using AI to help even with formatting. It doesn't help. It includes wrong DOIs, even if it's a true article. And remember, the purpose of this document is to tell your boss your progress, but the boss may be really interested in the data you're sharing as part of your literature review or your methodology. So you have got to go through and make sure that your data is accurate. That's the thing that I'm saying. So I think the sections are okay here. However, an executive summary is not part of the document, and you want to make sure that your research. So for example, if there's a quote in the Sparks source, the Sparks source is quite old. I don't know if I'd use a source that's 20 years old for this, or 30 years old in this case, but let's take a look and let's see if we can find that quote. This is another document where a DOI is not found. So again, I think every URL is problematic in here, but we're going to just search the title, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to search for that quote. Here's the title. The document does exist. We can find it in the library databases, and I wanted to do the PDF. I'm going to download that PDF. Okay, let's just save it on my desktop. And I'm going to look for that quote. So if I go back into this, this is why it takes a while. So I need to see the Sparks and results of the meta-analysis show a small. Let's just let's just search that part. And meta-analysis means they're searching multiple, or they're researching with multiple texts and analyzing multiple texts at the same time. Okay, so I go in and I try to find on the page, this is a paginated bit of research, so you must add page numbers. Let's see if we can find, and I, of course, want to make sure that my quotes are correct. And let's just do results of the meta-analysis. I'm wondering if it's the way that this is an older document. So I think what we need to do is go into the full text. And I can just search it this way instead. I may not get a page number, but at least I'll get a chance to see if it's accurate. Results of the let's just search for the word meta-analysis. Oh, and you know what? There's an extra space there. Maybe that's what's throwing it up. Here we go. It's right in the discussion section. So then you can go to the PDF and you can go to the discussion and you can accurately cite it, because the idea behind this is that your reader may not go in and look. But this is on this page right here, page 401. So if I would go into the student document here and Sparks, Cooper, Fried and Sharam, 1997, comma, space period, P period, 107, whatever that page number was. I think it was 401. So you want to add those page numbers. That's part of your documentation accuracy. If it comes from a web document that has no page numbers, of course, you don't need to include page numbers. But when you're borrowing something that's paginated, you must. Okay, so if I see a paginated range in the reference, I want to see page numbers in the document. I want to make sure that that quote exists. So it's not that these sources don't exist for the student. It's that the documentation, sometimes the copyright year is off and those DOI links are off as well. And I think a student can absolutely work on that. But this is something that you get feedback from during the draft phase. So this is an opportunity for you to learn, especially for any students who are considering going, you're finishing up your undergraduate careers and you're thinking about a graduate program. This is the type of accuracy that will be expected of every student. One final note in the writing of this report that I recommend for all students, and it's something you probably learned in Writing 112, it's that when you're doing the writing of this document, you don't want super big chunky paragraphs like you may have even in a traditional essay, but you want the information to be set up in this way. Topic sentence, borrowed data, analysis. The analysis, what the data signifies. What does it actually mean? How do you interpret it? Could it be interpreted differently? Data points can be interpreted wildly differently depending on who your audience is. You may see a percentage of loss of retention. An employee, a secondary reader may read this and go, oh, that doesn't seem like, 5% turnover is that high. But a manager or director level reading that may know that the numbers from prior years suggest that's double what's happened in prior years and that there's a problem there. So any data that you present, you want to unpack it or to explain it. And so I always tell students it's topic, sentence, data, discussion. And you can even pull it apart in multiple paragraphs if you need to, especially when you're formatting in single space. So that's the feedback I've got in this sort of basic overview. But like I would review the assignment rubric like I did in the other video, and I would go over that with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that if this was my paper, I was including all of the proper sections. Again, no grade for the draft, but only a grade for the absence of it because you didn't get feedback in time for a final submission. That's the feedback I've got on this. And if you have questions, just let me know.